Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another At America TV event with me, Jasmine. I hope you all are doing well. So, for those of you joining us for the first time, At America is the U.S. Embassy's American Center, and our mission is to provide a space for young Indonesians to learn more about the United States. We have temporarily moved to a digital platform so you can still enjoy all of our events at home. So, for this morning, we are having Introduction to the GRE Part 2 out of 6. But before we begin, I would like to share with you our social media quiz question for this morning. So, our question for today is GRE subject tests are content based exams that assess a person's mastery of a particular field of study. What are the 6 fields where a subject test is available? So, what are the 6 fields of subjects that are tested? So, you guys can participate in our social media quiz by commenting on our social media platform on our Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Instagram. And for those of you who got the answer correctly, you will get a live shout out from us at the end of the program. All right, without further ado, let's start our event. I would like to invite our facilitator for this morning. Please give a warm welcome for Christine Swendi, PhD candidate, English Language and Literature from Cornell University.
Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning, Santika. Do we start now?
Yeah, good morning, Christine. Thank you for your time for our second session. And everyone, make sure that you have your drinks ready, or coffee or tea, and your notes, of course, because this will be a 1.5 hour session. And today will be our second verbal session. We will have the third one next week, and then in December we will start with the quant. Okay, and everyone, if you are new here, like you just joined in the second session, I want to let you know that. You need to check the TNC if you are looking for a chance to win the GRE voucher. And we didn't expect participants from other than outside of Indonesia, and we did have participants outside of Indonesia last time, and I just feel inclined to explain a bit that. So as far as I know, the vouchers that we will purchase is kind of like limited to the region where we purchase it. So I'm not sure if if you're outside of Indonesia, you will be able to use the voucher. So I'll check that again, and I'll update the TNC on the website. And so stay tuned on the website. Thank you so much. And Christine, the floor is yours.
Okay, great, Santika. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I think I see some familiar names. So, since it's still a pretty long session, please keep the comments and chat running, okay? All right, so today is our second GRE verbal presentation. And as Santika explained last week, we usually do this in 6 sessions and we crammed it into 3. So we're trying our best to give you the best tools and tips to prep for the GRE verbal. But if you feel that these sessions are too short, etc., there are many great prep books out there, like the link that we shared last week to Manhattan Prep, still one of the best resources that you can use for prepping for the GRE verbal. And the PDF of that book we'll share again later, right, Santika? So I'm gonna share screen. Can you see my screen? I think it's good, right? Okay. Right, so second session, just a quick reminder of, sorry, I have to open the chat so that I know what you're talking about while I'm doing this. Okay, quick reminder of how we are breaking down the 3 sessions. Last week, we had introduced you to the concept of close reading and academic analysis in tackling the most difficult part of the GRE verbal, which is reading comprehension. So today, we are going to discuss what it means to look at vocabulary within the context of a text, right, or a passage. And we are going to deep dive more into reading comprehension, as well as some sentence completion and sentence equivalence questions. The last week, which is the 3rd week, and that's next week, we are going to do a deep dive into analytical writing. So argument essay and issue essay, 2 types of essays for the analytical writing section of the GRE verbal. So that could be pretty interesting to try and break down writing tips within a lesson. So I know that I went through this, but just a quick refresher. What is the point of the GRE verbal? To summarize this slide, the point is only to equip you with the skills that you need to read academically. That's it. The skills that you need to read academically. And you will see in the third week of our course that reading in an academic way is so tightly linked to organizing your thoughts when you are writing a response in the analytical writing section of the GRE verbal. So how well you read is going to contribute to how well you write. We'll talk about that next week. So as we see in this slide, academic reading, academic writing, executive reasoning, and what we would like to spend time talking about in particular in this lesson is vocabulary in context. Somebody had asked though last week, I think it was Tien, he's not here today, I think, as to the breakdown of the GRE verbal. So more or less it looks like this, right? You have reading comprehension, one long passage with 4 questions, 5 to 6 short passages that can be something like 150 words, and sometimes it's as few as just 2 questions on a short passage or medium passage, critical reasoning questions. So basically, you will see from the breakdown that most of the question types will occur where? In the reading comprehension section, right? And then you have 9 questions on sentence equivalence, probably the easiest part of the GRE verbal. So we will not spend too much time on that. And then text completions, you will have like about 4 questions there, I think. So this is the breakdown. And as we see from the breakdown, even if it varies a little bit, the bulk of your time is going to be spent on reading comprehension, which is why we're spending the most time there. I put this comic as like an interlude, but we can skip over it. Okay, so let's talk about a verbal hack, right? Because there are several hacks that you can use to prepare yourself for taking the GRE verbal. And one of these hacks is what we call looking for clues in context. What does it mean? The thing is that the GRE preparation always comes with a bunch of flashcards, and by no means don't avoid them. You do need those flashcards, right? And I think, again, we live in an age where everything is free. So I think if you Google GRE vocabulary flashcards online, you can find a lot of resources. So you're going to memorize a bunch of words, right? But that is not what the GRE verbal is about. Because if it was just about you memorizing the definition of words, the exam would look very different. Instead, you're being tested on what? On your skills in reading academically, right? But you're also being tested alongside that. You're being tested on a very subtle skill, that is your ability to understand vocabulary by looking at the context in which the words occur. So this is why when you're memorizing, when you're kind of memorizing definitions, it's important to look at word usage instead of just dictionary definitions. Try to always look for flashcards that use those words, right, in context, like within a sentence, because that can really help you understand a word better than if you're just memorizing the dictionary definition. So vocabulary as understanding context. Let's start with us all talking instead of me talking alone with this, I think, pretty simple sentence completion example as a way of discussing what it means to understand vocabulary in context, right? So here, sorry, I'm going to pick on you. So I'm just going to randomly call on Faina Faradiana. Faina Faradiana. Santika, I'm going to need your help in
Diana? Okay.
unmuting.
Sorry, Christine, can you repeat the name?
Faina Faradiana.
Fina. Okay, Fina, are you ready? You're
Hi, Faina.
unmuted.
Hello.
Okay, hello, I'm Saram of Chem. So I need to answer his questions, right?
Right, if you could
Okay.
first, and then
I'm going to try, but
yeah.
I'm sorry if maybe I made mistakes for this. So for the blank, the first blank,
Yeah.
I think the answer is because of the author's prejudice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, okay. Let's try. Let's try. Maybe we can start with something we spoke about last week by first understanding the plot
Oh,
of the
oh
sentence.
yeah,
Right.
okay.
So Let's
Oh,
read the
actually,
sentences.
I'm sorry. I'm a new one here. I
Oh,
don't
it's totally
know
okay.
yet.
Yeah.
I'm still learning.
Yep. If you could start by reading just the sentence itself,
Okay.
or yeah, because of the author's blah, many readers consider his latest work blank, but in reality, as many knowledgeable critics point out, the piece blank again. Fina, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still.
Okay. Can I ask you, if we look at the sentence itself,
Okay.
what is the word that you think is most significant in that sentence, even with the blanks? Maybe you guys who are listening to this, you can just type your responses in the chat. If we're looking at this sentence with those blanks, what word strikes you as most important? Is it author? Is it reality? Is it knowledgeable? Contrasting. But there isn't the word contrasting, Wisnu. What about you, Faina? What do you think? Don't look at the blank one, blank two, blank
Oh,
three.
okay.
Just look at the top. What word is important? What seems like a clue, in the
Oh, okay. I think the clue for the sentence first is about authors.
great.
Blah
What
blah blah. We don't know what is it, and then uh, latest work,
great. What else?
knowledgeable,
Great. Awesome.
and
Knowledgeable
then the piece.
author.
Yeah, the piece is an already the keyword as well. I think.
Okay. Then I'm gonna propose a hack here within the hack. I'm gonna propose that when you are trying to identify the clues in this type of GRE questions, and you ask yourself, like, looking at this sentence with a lot of blanks, what is the most important part of the sentence? The hack I would recommend is pick on the adjective, right? Not the noun. So author is a noun, correct?
Yeah.
Correct. Noun, like if I say orang is a noun, correct? Tapi kalau aku bilang orang gendut, what is the adjective? Gendut, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, what I want to recommend here is let's single out the adjective, right? In which case, what is it here? Knowledgeable, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Knowledgeable.
great. So now that we have read that sentence, more or less, let's attack the blanks, right? So we know that the author has a reputation, correct? We don't know what reputation it is. Because this author has a reputation, many readers consider his work something. But, and but is also important, right? I would say, sorry, I'm so bad at navigating this, but is very important. In reality, many knowledgeable people say the piece is blah, blah, blah. What do you think, Faina? Do you think that the knowledgeable critics are agreeing with many readers, or are the knowledgeable critics disagreeing with many people? Because here you have many readers, and then you have, but in reality, many knowledgeable critics. Are they in agreement?
But I think it's a contradict.
Excellent. Very, very good, Faina. It's a contradiction. So many readers think A, but knowledgeable critics think B, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So now we know that blank 1 and 2 would be in contradiction with blank 3, correct, Faina? Okay, so now let's take a look again at blank 1, 2, and 3. We already know from your point, Faina, that the first blank and the second blank is going to be stating an opposite opinion from the third blank. Does that help us figure out what the answers would be?
It could be.
So go ahead.
I don't know, but I think like coherence and lucidity.
Good, good. But where do you get the word coherence?
Okay.
Good guess from Vishnu, because Vishnu is building on Faina's clue that blank 1 and 2 are in contradiction with blank 3. So Vishnu says, because of the author's eloquence, many readers consider his latest work polarizing, but in reality, as many knowledgeable critics point out, the piece is the most succinct on the subject. If you say it's polarizing, it's not really the opposite of it's the most succinct on the subject, you know? There is a kind of contrast. Sometimes translate the sentence, like the plot of the sentence, even if a sentence is short, it's telling a story. And Faina already told us that the story here is many readers' opinions are in contradiction with what many knowledgeable critics think, correct? There is a contradiction. So the plot of the sentence is like, if I'm going to translate something like, a lot of people say like that restaurant is bad, but knowledgeable critics actually say the food is good, correct? Correct? Ah, very good. Ineke Rizky Rahmawati. Faina, can I give you a break and ask Ineke Rizky Rahmawati to explain why they chose verbosity, inaccessible, and is the most succinct? Maybe Santika can help me unmute Inek. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Ineke Rizky Rahmawati.
Ineke. Okay, Ineke, ready? Here you go.
Okay, thank you, Santika. Hi, Miss Christine.
Hello.
Well, because the Miss Finance said that the blank one and blank two contradict the blank three, I think the most appropriate contradiction is the inaccessible and is the most sucking on the subject.
Makes sense, makes sense. Because we see there is a kind of, that's excellent. We see there is a kind of grouping, right? Blank one and two are saying one thing about the writer's work, and blank three is saying the opposite of what blank one and two would be saying about the author's work, correct?
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because that's the plot of the sentence, correct? It's like a lot of people say that restaurant is bad and that the food is expensive, but knowledgeable food critics say that it's an excellent place, correct? Something like that is the plot of the sentence, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, exactly. So it means that blank one and blank two must be closely related, correct? Because, like, if I say the sentence, the food in this restaurant is bad and it's expensive or stale, but many knowledgeable critics say it's an excellent place, it means that the first two blanks, the two words are close in definition, correct? Correct? Because
Yes,
it's blank.
correct.
Yeah, blank one. So it cannot be like, it cannot be eloquence and poignant, for instance, because those words are kind of far. One means to be expressive and fluid, right? And poignant means to be like moving and touching. So it's kind of far. If we say prejudice and polarizing, it could work. It could work. But then it's not the opposite of the third blank. So tell me again in more details, maybe, Inaka, how did you find the answer?
So well, actually, I don't really know the meaning of verbosity itself, but I because I think the most contradict is inaccessible and the most succinct is because well, many readers find it hard to read or something, but the knowledgeable people say that the piece um, is have a great point about the subject.
Excellent. So you just guess verbosity, even though you don't know the word, because you know that there is a relation between inaccessible and succinct, correct? These two are antonyms. They're the opposite of each other in a way, like not really antonyms because like, but they're kind of related to each other. Therefore, you think that if the critics say it's actually succinct, but other people say it's inaccessible, it cannot be inaccessible and eloquent. It cannot be inaccessible and prejudiced. Therefore, you choose the word verbosity, even though you don't know its meaning, correct?
Yeah.
That's excellent. That's actually way better than understanding what verbosity means because the GRE would like you to be able to guess from the context more so than just memorize definitions of words, you know?
Oh, yeah, I see.
in this case, verbosity means like using a lot of words.
Oh, like wordy. I think someone said in this comment.
Correct. Wordy. A little bit pretentious, maybe the connotation, but yeah, wordy. Correct. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Do we all agree with her? She has the right answer. You have the right answer. So thank you so much for sharing. I don't know if I think this is the way you should be doing the sentence completion exercise. So if we're gonna go through the steps again, what are the hacks? The hacks would be first of all to understand the plot in the sentence. You can actually take what it's saying and transfer it to a different context. Like I use the example of the restaurant. Many people say the food is bad and expensive, but knowledgeable critics say it's excellent. You can do that because what I did there is to map the progress of the sentence, right? But I just changed like the context a little bit for myself. The other thing is to look at the sentence and consider where there are clues in the sentence you are given, despite the blanks. And I recommend that you would look for the clues in the adjective that is used, and also in the conjunctions. Conjunctions are words that turn, right? Like however, nonetheless, but those words, transition words, conjunctions, whatever you call them, signal to you what the plot of the sentence would be, correct? It's in this conjunction that you know the story that that sentence is telling. So look for those conjunctions. And then once you kind of know the plot of the sentence, like, oh, the sentence is saying that there are a group of people which is called A and they've been said to do this thing, but another group of people say they've been doing it wrong. Just kind of simplify it for yourself. Then you will kind of figure out what the relations should be in blank 1, 2, and 3. Like, are the words in the both blanks supposed to be the saying the same things on one side of the issue? Is blank 1 and 2 supposed to be in contrast to blank 3, etc.? And then when you do these exercises by figuring out what are the relations of the options to each other, it should help you answer the question. Like in some cases, blank 1 and blank 2 are saying similar things from the context of the sentence. Like I could have a sentence like, I find the mountains to be a very something blank and something place. I always go there in order to rest. Okay, imagine the sentence. I always find the mountains to be very blank 1 and blank 2, comma. Therefore, I always go there to rest. If you have that kind of a sentence, blank 1 and blank 2 are not in contradiction with each other, right? You would be finding similar words, correct? To fill in those two blanks. So figuring out the relations of the blanks can help you. Don't know if I made sense. Let's do another exercise. Now going to the other question type, because there are 3 question types, right? RC, reading comprehension, sentence completion, and sentence equivalence. So let's try this one. Anwari, if I can torture you by making you like read out loud this question and options, that'll be great. Anwari Mutakin Santika.
Anwari. Hey, Anwari.
Hi, Anwari. Unstable connection. Okay, let's try Wisnu. No, Wisnu already talked. I'm not sure. Let's try Dea Paramatalia.
Dea Natalia.
Paramatalia. Dea Paramatalia. Okay, we'll try
Hi, Dea.
Hi.
Hello. Can I
Hello.
ask you to read the sentence?
Okay. To combat the tension between conquered and conqueror that seems to inevitably spark revolution, the Roman Empire adopted a practice of blah blah blah, attempting to make all conquered nations Romans. I think the answer is assimilation, maybe.
Right. This. Oh yeah, I forgot to include the instructions. So in sentence equivalence, you are asked to pick 2 answer choices, right, which are synonyms of each other. So assimilation and
assimilation, and integration, maybe.
Awesome. Why not hegemony? And
Uh,
subjugation?
I don't know actually. I just have feeling about that.
Just have a gut instinct about that. That's very good. So first you started with the answer assimilation because assimilation is to make something the same, right, as other things, correct? So you said assimilation because of the phrase attempting to make all conquered nations Romans, correct? Correct. Is that the phrase that keyed you into the fact that it's assimilation? Oh, there is a disagreement here, but we can't unmute many people at once. So while Dea is saying that the answer is assimilation and integration, some people say it's hegemony and integration. Widya, but it cannot be integration and hegemony, though, Widya, because those two words are not synonyms, and the two answer choices that you choose would have to be synonyms.
Actually, I recall. I am recalling about the integration between the Catholic and the paganism in Roma, and that reminds me about combining two different culture or different way of thinking and ideology, and combining each other become one, so that they can live happily ever after.
Right. So from that clue and that from remembering that usage, you decided to go with integration and assimilation, correct?
Yeah,
Awesome.
I guess.
It is actually the correct answer here. But let's call on Wisnu Yogaswara. Why do you think it's subjugation and hegemony?
Hi, Wisnu.
Hello, Wisnu.
I don't think I can unmute him.
Oh,
It's
I thought he
probably
said he was ready.
microphone. Oh, there you go. Hi, Wisnu.
Hello.
Hello. Why do you think it's hegemony and subjugation, Wisnu?
Well, I see conquered and conqueror, and that's the key that I think will lead me to the answer. And I know the word hegemony is means like conquered, so I choose D. And I don't know the synonym of hegemony in the answer choices, so I just pick subjugation because I didn't know what the meaning of it.
Yeah. This is like a trick that is often found in the sentence equivalents where they throw you one word that seems to like fit in quite well. In this case, Wisnu's choice of subjugation. It fits in quite well, correct? Because when you conquer a group of people, you're subjugating them, correct? Correct? That's why you say subjugation, right, Wisnu? Yeah. The problem is they trick you with that one word that makes sense in a way in the context, but you can't find the synonym of that word. Like in German, you don't know what it means. It means to make totalizing hegemony to total unwary. I think that's quite a good definition. Um, Hegemony, however, doesn't have a synonym in this list, does it? Does anyone want to take a step at this? Is there a word here that means hegemony? I'm trying to remember. Okay. Totalizing. Is that a good definition? I think hegemony is more like domination of one thing. Domination of one thing, right? So hegemony is domination of one thing. Subjugation, however, means what? It's to subjugate someone, to make someone a subject. So domination and subjugation seems close, and yet it's not the answer. Why is it not the answer when we can actually push for hegemony and subjugation to be close synonyms, though not entirely close? Does anyone want to take a stab at this? Sinta is Fandiari. If we think with Wisnu that subjugation means, to conquer a group of people, and hegemony is to dominate with your leadership or your style over others, why can't it be D and F? Why is it B and C? Sinta is unmuted. Okay, great. If Sinta.
Well, I think it's because integration and assimilation is to make different things to be one group, to be similarly one group. I think that's why I agree with Dia's answer.
Correct, because I guess this is the case where it's a little bit going back to vocabulary in context. Correct. Actually, even though they're not exactly the same definitions, we could say that hegemony and subjugation are synonyms enough that they could be the answer, but they're not the answer because of the phrase what? To combat the tension, correct? To combat the tension between A and B, someone did C, correct?
Oh, yeah.
So C is meant to solve this tension of difference between two groups of people, correct? So hegemony and subjugation would be negative connotation words, while it seems from the phrase to combat the tension between this and this, it's looking for a positive connotation word, correct?
Yeah, true.
So is that why it's B and C? Because of to combat the tension between?
Well, actually, I don't really understand hegemony means, but looking at the full sentence, I think it's gonna be as you told before, will be positive things, and I think I just excluded all the like deterrence. For example, it means like a negative things, right? I don't. It means deterrence is. I don't. I think it's. I don't really. I I'm only focused on the attempting to make all concretation. I think would not because the combat of the tension. Actually.
Okay. Yeah. Because you're saying you're focusing on the key phrase, attempt to make all concrete nations the same. Therefore, assimilation, therefore integration. Okay, understand. You're still doing the right thing here because you're doing what we say we should do, which is look at a sentence, pick out the significant adjective or the significant word or the significant part of the sentence or the transition words, and then try to make sense of it that way, correct? Which is what you're doing. You're looking at the sentence and picking
I only
up.
focus on the last words.
Great, yeah, and you are focusing on attempting to make all concrete nations Romans. Okay, I think it could go that way. For me, the clue is in the first few words, which is to combat the tension. Because if I look at attempting to make all concrete nations Romans, I think I would agree with Wisnu that could also be hegemony, which, as I put down in the group, the definition of hegemony is dominance of one group over others, correct? So if you dominate over others, you could say that that's attempting to make everyone the same as yourself. So if I just look at attempting to make all concrete nations Romans, I could choose D and F, but because I'm looking for a positive valence word, which is combating tension between blah, 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 therefore it's assimilation and integration because those are positive words. Okay? But I think your way makes sense as well in this question type. It's just that in another question type, they might more forcefully want to make you choose the words based on other clues than that part of the sentence. Not sure. I'm being unclear, sorry, but I'm just saying in this sentence, if the first part of the sentence did not exist and I was reading from the last part of the sentence itself, I'm not sure that it would have to be integration and assimilation, if that makes sense. Because attempting to make all concrete nations Romans could be something that's negative. So I think I would need the first part of the sentence to help me answer. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Which means that every single part of the sentence kind of matters, which makes reading tricky because you are trying to isolate what is the key phrase that could help you answer the question. But in a way, that key phrase that you chose, if you disregard the rest of the sentence, could also lead you down the wrong path, right? So I guess that's the part of these short sentences which are tricky. They seem so short and so much simpler than the reading comprehension, but they're actually asking you to pay quite a lot of attention to this short sentence and every part of it. One thing I wanted to note is that, in a way, when you're studying for the GRE verbal, you have to change your expectation about how you are supposed to read something and how closely you are supposed to read something. Every single person, when they have never heard of this thing called the verbal GRE test, and they just do a practice test, every single person will do poorly, everyone, because you're not used to how they're asking you to read. Because in daily life, we mostly read for information, like you read a recipe and you're like, oh, what does it need? 250 grams of flour. Okay, that's it. 250 grams of flour is what I need. You're reading for information, but in the GRE, you're trying to read critically, right? And closely, analytically, academically. So that is what trips people up when they first come into contact with it. But once you adjust your expectation and you get used to it, you're like, okay, I know there's a trick here. Okay, I know I'm supposed to find the clue from certain parts of the sentence. Okay, I'm supposed to pay attention to the transition words. Okay, I'm supposed to know that blank one is in contrast with blank two, etc. Then it gets so much simpler. So it's just about that adjustment, if that makes sense. You adjust to know how they want you to read and everything becomes easier. So sentence equivalence, 5 tips. We just looked at a sentence equivalence here, right? So here are some tips that could help us, but that I don't want to read for a second because I would prefer if somebody else reads this. Can I ask Adrian Pratama Santika? Could I ask Adrian Pratama?
Pratama. Adrian, you are unmuted.
Well, read the.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, just read the first couple of points.
Okay.
One
until 3, or just okay. Sentence equivalence. 5 tips. First, identify pairs, but beware. You know that the 2 words you choose have to create 2 sentences with approximately the same meaning. This means that the 2 words you choose need to be synonyms, not necessarily close synonyms, but synonyms. Number 2, eliminate outlier words. Similarly, since you know that the 2 words you choose have to have at least a somewhat similar meaning, if you find any words in the list that don't have any remote matches, you know that they can be right answer choice. So you can eliminate those. Number 3, fill in the blank yourself. When you read the sentence, think about what words you might place in the blank to complete the sentence in a way that makes sense. Then see if you can identify similar words among your choices.
Great. Thank you so much, Adrian, for reading and allowing me to drink some tea. Excellent. Okay. Thank you. This one is interesting, right? It says not necessarily, oh, please, Adrian, stay on the line. it says not necessarily close synonyms, but synonyms. So it's saying that if I have two words like hot and warm, they can be the answer, even though there's a slight difference between hot and warm, correct? It's not exactly the same, but it's close enough. So that's something to pay attention to, that it could ask you to choose two words which are not exactly pointing at the same meaning, but close enough, right?
Yeah.
Eliminate, yeah.
Um, eliminate like the what different from the warm and hot.
Correct, correct. So the second one, eliminate outlier words, is eliminate the one that doesn't seem to fit in with any of the rest, correct? So if we look at this, the outlier word is which? If we look at A, B, C, D, E, F, something like totalitarianism is quite an outlier word, correct? Because it's not, there's always one option that's kind of off. It cannot be the answer. You use process of elimination to eliminate that. And Adrian, since you're already on the line, and could you help me read 4 and 5 as well?
Okay.
Thank you.
Number 4, assess word positivity or negativity. You can often tell from the context of the sentence if a positive or negative word belongs in the blank. This can help you eliminate words that you know don't have the correct valence, even if you are not completely sure of the exact definition. And number 5, use signal words. Certain words, especially transition, can function as signal words in sentence equivalent questions. They will tell you something about what purpose different parts of the sentence serve. This can help you infer what can best go in the blank. For example, if you see a word like although, you know that you are about to see a caveat or clarification. Words like furthermore and indeed mean that part of the sentence will offer further support of or emphasize. Instead, and but mean you are about to see a counterpoint or different perspective. If you can notice what transition and conjunction like and but as a signal sentences, you will have a much easier time telling what words could belong in the blank for sentence completion.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adrian. Appreciate the help. Can I ask you which of these you find most helpful as a tip from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Sorry. Identify pairs, like quickly identify synonyms, quickly identify the word that's totally off and it's not an option, fill in the blank yourself, assess whether you want like a negative word here or a positive word, look at the signal words, transition words, conjunctions. Can I ask you, Adrian, which of these you usually use as a tip to answer sentence equivalence?
In the first attempt, I think the use signal words in the question will help me, and then the second maybe I will use the number 2 to eliminate the identify pairs first and eliminate it.
Oh, identify pairs first and then eliminate the two words that are not synonyms of each other, correct?
Yeah, I think like that. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. For me, my personal favorites, I think, would be assess word positivity or negativity from looking at the entire sentence, right? Like I said with the example here, for me, to combat the tension between A and B, combating tension is a great thing. So I thought to myself, positive word, because it's like if you have siblings and your mom wants to combat the tension between the siblings, she might give everyone the same toy. So it's like a good thing to combat tension. Therefore, I look for positive words. Therefore, I agree it's B and C. So I find 4, like assess positive or negative words, to be super helpful, especially when you don't really know some of the words given to you in the options, right? And then signal words. So important, not just for this section, but all over the GRE verbal section. Signal words when you're reading a long passage and you see words like furthermore, indeed, blah, blah, blah. What should you do? You should imagine like disco lights, like you're trying to read quickly, right? You have 7 minutes left in the section and you're trying to read a very long passage. You can skim. But when you see words like nevertheless or however or but, you should imagine disco lights like, okay, that's something I need to pay attention to right there. New messages. Interesting. Yeah, I think I agree. Yeah, they are and Adrian and myself, we all find using signal words to be a very important tip. Okay, 11:46. Let's move on. Thank you so much, Adrian.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you're welcome.
So let's test your high frequency GRE vocabulary. This is just a very short list. The reason I gave you these words is not because they are the most important words, but because I'm telling you that there is such a thing as high frequency words. And again, we live in the age of resources. All you have to do is go online. All you have to do is go online and Google high frequency, which means that these are words that usually occur. Excellent question, Sinta. I will get there to your question of how can we assess the positive or negative valence of a word if we don't know that word, right? I will get there. So let's take this as an example for Sinta's question, right? These are some high frequency GRE vocabulary. Some words occur more than others, so you should definitely master those words over others. So if we look at this very quickly, which of these words seem to be like negative valence words? Any guesses? This is addressing Sinta's question. If you're not reading the Zoom chat, do read the Zoom chat. Everybody agrees. Antipathy. Why is it antipathy, Dewi Herawanti? Dewi Herawati, can you tell me why it's antipathy? Wow, such agreement in the Zoom chat. Why is it antipathy? Because it's anti. Dewi? Dewi Herawati? Hello, Dewi. Okay, never mind. I guess I won't call on Dewi because I think Santika might not be able to unmute her. Anyway, because there's anti. Correct.
I
Very
have
good.
unmute Dewi there.
Okay, hi Dewi. Why antipathy? Because
Yes, the keyword is use anti. Maybe when we choose the negative form is from the keyword like anti or maybe anything else.
Right. Yeah, very good. Thank you. So we do know there are some positive valence words and some negative valence words. How do we know them? You say from the root anti. So actually we know them from the roots, correct? Because the English language is a mix of like Latin words, Latin roots with some Germanic influences, etc. But a lot of English is actually Latin, right? So here is another hack. Aside from studying high frequency words, look for resources online that say something like GRE root words or something like that. Google GRE root words. I think this is a good way to hack it, right? Because if we look at the words on the list just now, antecedent, pedestrian, preamble, intercede, homologous, antipathy, there are some here that you would have problems with. I think the most difficult word on this list is actually pedestrian, but I'm not sure if you agree with me because pedestrian usually means like the zebra crossing on the road. It's like for pedestrians, right? People who are walking on the streets, they are pedestrians, but it doesn't mean that. So it doesn't always mean that. But if we look at the roots, homologous, homo obviously means same. So we also have words like homogeneous, right? Like I find the selection really homogeneous. Everything is almost the same. There is nothing to eat or something like that. If you look at pre, obviously it's before or earlier, right? So preamble, it actually means like stuff you say before you get to the gist of the matter. Like when I make comments about the Zoom chat before I actually go to the first slide, that's a preamble, correct? And you know that because of pre. And then pedestrian, pede, which means foot, etc. There are connotations here. Pedestrian also means common, kayak pasaran gitu loh, etc. So it means like walking on foot, something common, etc. There is an association there. There are so many root words beyond this, though. So I'm just trying to say, yeah, I'm just trying to say, try to work with root words because they can help you. The second thing is, so that's one of the hacks, right? Look for the roots of words. But the second hack is, there are going to be some words which are tricky in the context of the GRE verbal because our common usage could be very different from a second dictionary meaning or a third dictionary meaning, which is being fished for in the way the word occurs in the GRE. So meaning like if we look at the word disinterested, what does it mean disinterested? I'm not interested in this topic, correct? But you know how all words have sometimes multiple definitions, right? If you Google like disinterested definition, it gives you number one. The most common definition is to be not interested in a topic. Then definition 2, 3, 4. So oftentimes the GRE will not look for the first definition of a word, but the second or the third. So a couple of examples we have seen so far would be pedestrian and disinterested. So disinterested sounds like bored, right? Or like not being interested in something, but it actually means fair, right? As in like my call is to let the team do XYZ, but I'm disinterested in the matter, so I'm just using data to back up this decision or something like that. So it can also mean fair. And then sanguine, which we always think of in relation to blood, but actually means to be very optimistic, etc. So there are some of these words where common usage differs from the word's formal definitions, and looking at some of them could help as a kind of hack. And then the third one would be the second definition. It's kind of like the same as the second one, actually. Like, so again, favorite example here is pedestrian, as I said, which means common and doesn't mean to walk on the street. And then, of course, the fourth one is so many similar words with extremely different meanings, right? Maybe I can ask someone to take a stab at this. What about the last one, extend and extend? Extend and extend. Anyone would like to take a guess at the difference between these two? Salman Agus. Can we unmute Salman Agus? Santika? Anytime I've droned on for too long, we have to unmute someone. So
Salman is unmuted.
hi, Salman.
Hi, Miss Christine. So for extend, I'm not saying is extend is to add something like to prolong maybe, but extend actually I never heard that word before, so I didn't know exactly what's that mean. Is
Okay, what about X as a root word? What does it mean, X as a root?
X I mean maybe like extra to add. So they have something more maybe.
Yeah. It has the meaning of out of, or away.
Out, yeah.
Right. So like export, the most easy, the most easily found, I don't know.
Oh yeah, so like export, import.
Export, import, correct. Exit, correct, to go out, right? But extend is more like extend, as in you go outward, correct? The extent to which something. So sometimes it means out, sometimes it means outward. What about extent? This is such a high frequency word, by the way. I would say in so many GRE exercises. Extent. Yes, to still exist. Can you use it in a sentence, Vishnu? Maybe you can type it in a sentence in the Zoom chat. How do we use extend? The first one. If anyone can take up the challenge of using extant in a sentence, the original manuscript is no longer extant, meaning no longer in existence, correct? Like, is that right? Still in existence? Okay. Okay. So thank you very much, Salman. I think you're right. We all know extent, but extent is a very is less common. Can we try deprecate and depreciate? Anyone? Deprecate and depreciate? Let's. Who do we want to call on, Santika? I'll let you pick the victim.
All right, our next victim. I think Arista is very ready.
Okay.
Arista, are you ready? All right, unmuting you. There you go.
Hello, Christine.
Hello, Arista. How does she know you're very ready, by the way?
I don't know.
Go on, and she's very attentive. So yeah, I figured you should be, participate, and I think you will be able to learn more from this.
Thanks, Santika. Hello, Arista. So,
Depreciate. It's like declining, depreciation, maybe. Depreciate.
to depreciate in value.
Depreciation.
Yeah.
It's
And
declining,
deprecate?
I guess.
Yep.
And deprecate. I don't know. I don't know. Christine.
Uh,
Okay.
what about Salman Agus? Because you wrote deprecate and you wrote obsolete. Does deprecate mean obsolete? I know we already called on Salman, but just because he said deprecate obsolete, I'm curious to know why. Right, deprecate is a plural.
All right, Salman is unmuted.
Okay, Miss. Because in my maybe it's a bit out of context, but in my line of work as a programmer, when dependency is deprecate, we can no longer use that anymore. So I think it's more closely to unusable anymore or obsolete.
Are you sure? Is that word not depreciate? Are you sure it's deprecate?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's deprecate, not depreciate.
Interesting. Because program. Okay. Again, Santika, it's really strange. Like everybody who attends your GRE sessions, they only work in tech. Right,
Loved it.
Santika? Yeah, noted, right?
And many of my advices actually are in tech too. So if you guys, need anything, don't hesitate, okay?
Yeah. And don't forget, I also work in tech. So if we
Yeah.
want to have a session
Okay,
on
that makes the two of
tech,
us.
tech in Indonesia today and its connection with Silicon Valley. Right, Santika? Perfect. Next session. Anyway. Okay. So we will blame programming language because deprecate doesn't mean obsolete. I think the most common usage of deprecate is she is very self-deprecating or he makes many self-deprecating jokes about his own abilities. And what would that mean? Self-deprecating. The dictionary meaning of deprecate is disapproval, but self-deprecating is like humorously making fun of yourself. Okay, so depreciate, deprecate, but and then my favorite would be the first one, restive and restful. Such close words, but what does restive mean? Aulia Kurnia Putri, what does restive mean? Does it mean the same thing as restful, by the way? Restive? I think it's also a high frequency GRE word. Aulia.
I think it can be considered from the word rest.
Yeah.
Rest means taking a rest,
Yeah.
sleep.
Mhm.
Maybe restive is something that makes you feel more rested, but restful is more like this for example this pillow. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Right.
Yeah, both are adjective, but I think the difference is restive, like the opposite of festive.
Yeah.
But restful maybe the condition of, yeah, Arista said calm.
Right. Restive actually means restless. Isn't that weird? Restive actually means like not calm, not restful. It means the opposite of restful actually. And yet the two words are so similar. And why would adding an IVE make it into the opposite? Don't know, but restive means restless. What's the dictionary definition of restive? Does it mean anxious, Christina Aprilia? Um, does it mean something between restless and anxious? No, it doesn't mean not interested. It means restless, not calm. Like I had a very restive night because I was extremely anxious about blah 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 the next day. Okay? Which means correct, uneasy, restless, anxious, something like that. Okay? So restive, high recurring GRE word. I don't know if you have my PPTX Santika, but if we could share this link in the Zoom chat for the slide, that would be awesome.
Sure, I'm on it.
Thank you so much, Santika. Web. Okay, moving on. RC, let's break down the question types. Are you ready? Can we move on from the small stuff, the smaller unit questions to the favorite part of the GRE verbal, reading comprehension? So we are going to break down the fact that there are about 9 types of reading comprehension questions, right? And Widya, since you just contributed in the Zoom chat, I'm going to ask you to help me read some stuff, okay? But before we get there, before we call on Widya, Angrayani, just to again remind you, you are being tested on your ability to understand tone and the author's position. Remember that in most of these passages, the author is not directly expressing his opinion on a certain subject. He is mainly summarizing and juggling and representing other experts' opinions on a certain subject. So, for you to look at a certain person summarizing critic A and critic B on global warming and find the author's own position on global warming via what he said, other people said about global warming, can be a little bit of an exercise, right? That's academic writing. Like, because we are talking about ability to understand tone, I'm gonna skip ahead and show you like an example. Where is my example? Like this. This is an example that is very clearly an instance of academic writing because it says, in John D'Amelia's essay, Capitalism and Gay Identity, he argues that the emergence of industrial capitalism led to new opportunities for free laborers in the United States, blah, blah, blah. Where is the author's opinion? It didn't say, I feel that industrial capitalism did A, B, C, D, E, right? It's saying that guy, in that guy's essay, he said this or that about capitalism. So very, very important to understand that one of the things you have been tested on is to what was I saying? Understand the author's position and tone. Understand the author's position and tone, even if he's representing his position via his summary of other people's positions. Infer based on the information provided in the text. And the third one, which is so important, close reading. We'll see an example of that in one of our RC passages later. So I was gonna call on Vidya to maybe help me read through like the 9 question types. Is it okay, Vidya?
Widya.
Angrayani.
Yeah.
Hello, Vidya.
Hi.
Hello. This is a very long section.
Yeah.
Can I ask you? Okay, thank you so much. I'll drink some tea. Now,
Okay.
ask the question type 1.
Okay. RC question type 1. What is being said? Questions. These questions ask the test taker about the main idea or the primary argument of the passage. Ask yourself, what is the argument of this passage if I were to sum it up in one sentence? Example, the passage is primarily concerned with.
Okay, I might interrupt you as you read, Vidya. That's okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so anytime you see the phrase, the passage is discussing blah, the passage is primarily concerned with blah. What they're asking you is for a summary of the passage, okay? But the language is always like this. The passage is primarily concerned with blah. Thank you, Vidya. Let's continue to question type 2. Hello, Vidya. Are you still there? Oh, yeah. Please continue with question type 2. Sorry, guys. Sometimes in Zoom, we have technical difficulties. Oh, Santika, is Vidya still unmuted? She is, right?
Yeah, she's
Okay.
unmuted now.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Vidya, I'm going to make you read up to 9, so we are at 2.
Okay. RC question type 2, author's tone questions. These are the types of question asking the test taker to address the author's perspective or tone regarding the issue in question. This can be tricky because they are not asking what, but rather how. Ask yourself, what attitude does the author seems to have toward the topic? For example, the passage regards the idea of the modern artistic activity with.
Okay, 3. Let's go on to 3. Hello, Vidya.
Okay, find the fact questions. This question often masquerade as requiring readers in inferences when they are actually just asking the test taker to locate a truth employed by the author in order to make a point. Look to passage; it explicitly contains the answer you're looking for. For example, the passage suggests which of the following about the woman's historians mentioned in the third paragraph.
Sorry, Vidya, I have to interrupt you. This is a very important point. Is it okay? I'll interrupt you for a second. Don't mute don't mute. Okay, cool. This is so important because very often you have this type of language, right, in the question type. So this type of language uses the word suggest. So because suggest is such a soft word because it's saying like, what is the connotation, right? What does the passage suggest? Very often you will be provided with answer options that calls for you to not to extrapolate from the text, but to kind of like there are answer choices that are bringing in outside information, and it seems like reasonable. It seems like a reasonable option, even though it's bringing in external facts. So you choose it. It would be wrong. This is often a trick in the GRERC. So when you're asked, when you face this kind of question type, the passage suggests which of the following about blah blah blah. What do you want to do? What you want to do is look exactly at the passage itself and only answer according to the facts in the passage and nothing else. This is actually a very good golden rule. Like if you have a passage that's discussing global warming and then it's discussing global warming between 1960 and 1979, and then one of the answer options is discussing how in the 1990s scientists have actually discovered new truths about global warming. Never choose it because the passage itself was only discussing 1960 to 1979. What am I saying is the golden rule here? Only answer according to the words in the text and nothing else. That's a good way to go about it, okay? Sorry, Vidya, are you still there? Can we go to more? Yeah.
As the question type 4,
Yeah.
inferential questions. This question requires the test taker to make an inferential leap based on the observation derived from a synthesized comprehension of passage content. To answer them correctly, you will need to use content from the passage to extrapolate about content beyond the passage scope. For example, it can be inferred from the passage that the author would agree with which of the following statement.
Okay, pause for a quick second. Nobody is saying anything in the Zoom chat. I thought someone would say by now, but you said in the last point that you cannot extrapolate anything that's not in the text. And yet, in the inference question, it says you'll need to use content from the passage to extrapolate about something beyond the passage's scope. Okay, only in terms of inference questions, you might be asked to use the facts in the passage to infer something, but nonetheless, you're still inferring based on only the information in the passage and not based on what you know. So if you come across a passage on programming and you happen to know something about Pascal or whatever it is, it shouldn't matter. What you know about the subject doesn't matter. What matters is the information you're given on the subject in that passage, okay? Sometimes when I come across a GRE passage about a writer I know, I feel so smart because I know this writer and I answer according to my knowledge outside of the passage and I'm always wrong. So it's not a trick. Don't fall for it, okay? 5.
Okay. RC question type 5. Contextual definition question. These questions are pretty straightforward in that they test one's ability to use context clues to work out the meaning of a word. Ask yourself, what other word could you substitute in and retain in sentence meaning? For the example, the word address appears underlined and in boldface twice in the first sentence of the passage. In the context of passage as a whole, address is closest in meaning to
Okay.
type 6, extrapolating questions. These are often regarded as the trickiest type of the question on the reading comprehension section of the GRE. For test takers to score well here, they must be able to isolate the relationship between two passage components and match it with a similar outside circumstance. Example, which of the following describes a situation that is analogous to the situation described in the fourth paragraph?
Okay. And then, okay, Vidya, I think because I want to get to the RC passage, I'll spare you for now and quickly go through 7, 8, and 9. Thank you so
Okay.
much for the help.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Extrapolating question, which is also, why is it the trickiest type of question? Because you have to isolate the relationship between two passage components. Yeah. So sometimes you're asked to locate the answer not in a particular sentence, but in two different parts of the passage and make the connection between them. And that's harder, more difficult. Extrapolating structure question, very, very easy. What if this were true? Question, a little bit of a logic trick, but still not that difficult. I think the most accept questions, also a logic question, not that difficult. The main thing I want you to get from these 9 types of RC question types is that even though inference questions are a little bit difficult because you need to extrapolate something based on the information in the text, my main point here is that the golden rule still remains: only answer according to what is in the passage and nothing else beyond that. Okay? More quick tips about, for me, says Reza, answering based on my previous knowledge is very tempting. I know I do that too, as I said, Reza, especially when I see a passage discussing something. I know I'm like, okay, I know a lot about this, so I'm gonna answer that. It's always wrong. Don't fall for it. The GRE verbal is quite tricky. Because you see, like the main thing here is that the assumption when you take the test is that it doesn't matter if you know nothing about the topic. You should still be able to answer about the supernova, even if you've never read about the supernova, because you're not tested on the subject, but on your skills in reading. Yeah, okay, Santika just pointed out to me that my link was wrong. So apologies for it. I wanted to send you a link on similar words with very, very different meanings, but I'll share it next week instead. Anyway, some tips again. So if you're gonna read and you have 7 minutes left, what do? You skip the details, okay, when you skim. Pay attention to the transition words, right? However, but that's where the disco lights should come on in your head. Read the questions first, but never read the questions first when there are 5 questions. Number 3 is a very popular test taking tip, but it only makes sense when you have 2 questions, then quickly read the 2 questions and go back to the passage. But if there are 5, you're going to waste your time reading the questions instead of the text. It works for the SAT, doesn't work that well for the GRE, because most questions in the GRE is calling for a very close attention to the words, so you can't really skim and answer correctly. So don't waste your time reading 5 questions. Sum up the piece and then critical reading. Okay, great. Now let's move on to talk about the RC itself and do a practice passage. Here's my claim that if you learn to read really well, you will have no problem answering any of the questions in the GRE. It's really just a test on close reading. So this is one of my favorite passages from the GRE RC, and I wonder who would like to read it. I think we're gonna ask Reza to read it because he was here last week. So and he just talked, so we will ask him to read. No, you cannot highlight the text, I think. Paper tests are still given, but they're quite rare. Mostly it's online, right? It's digital, so you cannot highlight. It sucks. Reza, wanna read? A supernova is a brief stellar explosion. Wait,
All of the passage.
yeah, but before you begin, let's tell everyone we are all gonna read alongside Reza while he reads it. And now that we have had 1.5 lessons on this, please don't read the same way you used to read. Don't read passively. When Reza is reading, your head should be alert. Like you should be like, okay, this seems to be discussing this thing, but the author's position, I don't know yet. That phrase seems to be really important. There is a plot twist here with the transition word that is etc. There is a modifier here that where they say quite rarely. Rarely is interesting. It's saying that it happens quite rarely. It doesn't happen every time. It's interesting that I don't know this word, but it doesn't matter. Those are details. It's interesting that he brings in this detail. I wonder if it's related to that word. So we are going to read actively. Okay, guys? This is going to be our test after all those tips that we talked about. Vocabulary in context, blah, blah, blah. Signal words. We're going to use it to answer this. So after he reads, we are going to look at the questions. And if we get anything wrong, it means that we have completely wasted our time. Okay? All right, guys? Agree? As in, like, the challenge here is he's going to read, we are going to look at the question, and we have to get everything right by now, okay? Yes, I'm sure there is silent agreement. So, Reza, please begin.
Okay. A supernova is a brief stellar explosion so luminous that it can briefly outshine an entire galaxy. While the explosion itself takes less than 15 seconds, supernovae takes weeks or months to fade from view. During that time, a supernova can emit an amount of energy equivalent to the amount of energy the sun is expected to radiate over its entire lifespan. Supernova generate enough heat to create heavy elements such as mercury, gold, and silver. Although supernova explode frequently, a few of them are visible from Earth to naked eye. In 1604 in Padua, Italy, a supernova became visible, appearing as a star so bright that it was visible in daylight for more than a year. Galileo, who lectured at the university, gave several lectures widely attended by the public. The lectures not only sought to explain the origin of the star, some posted that perhaps it was merely vapor near Earth, but seriously undermined the view of many philosophers that the heavens were unchangeable. This idea was foundational to worldwide underpinned by central and all-important Earth, with celestial bodies merely rotating around it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Reza. Well read, well read. I'm just gonna mention briefly that it seems like a pretty simple passage, but there are many qualifications as is very regular in academic writing. Instead of saying statements like only rabbits which are white are found in this forest or something like that, or all rabbits found in this forest have vitamin D deficiency, whatever. All only universal totalizing claims are not typical in academic passages. Meanwhile, statements that modify their positions by resorting to something like an adverb or an adjective, that's very common. So if we look at this even the first sentence, it says it's a brief explosion. It can outshine an entire galaxy, right? But not forever. It can only briefly outshine an entire galaxy, correct? Briefly, right? Line 1. And then if we look again in line 6, although supernova explode frequently, although disco lights, right? Although few of them are visible to the naked eye. See, it doesn't explode all the time, it explodes frequently. In 1604, Padua, Italy, blah, 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 something happened. And then there was this guy called Galileo. He gave how many lectures? Did he give did he give like a million lectures? No, he gave like several lectures, but they were widely attended, and then his lectures, what did they do? They seriously undermine the views of philosophers before him. So whenever you have a sentence that says that this view seriously corrected or undermined previous views, that's probably interesting. The idea was foundational to a worldview underpinned by blah blah blah. Anyway, I guess I'm saying there are qualifiers in this passage that will matter when we are answering the questions. So let's answer the questions now. 3 questions, I think. 3 questions, and we have to get every single one right. Ready? Yes, we are ready. Okay, cool. The primary purpose of the passage is to, this is the factual question, it's RC question type 1. Remember? RC question type 1, guys? No, we don't remember because there were too many question types. But 1, what is being said? Question. The passage is primarily concerned with, so this is RC question type 1, right? All right, what is the answer? Let's think about it. The primary purpose of the passage is to A, give the history of the supernova. Okay. B, describe a shift in thought as a result of a natural event. C, juxtapose 2 opposing views about the supernova. D, corroborate the view that the Earth is not central to the universe. E, explain how science and philosophy interrelate. B, describe the shift in thought as a result of a natural event. Do we all agree? Is it B? Why were you so sure that it would be Vishnu disagrees? What are the 2? Vishnu is always giving controversial opinions that disagrees with the rest. Very controversial person here, Santika. So he's choosing juxtapose 2 opposing views about the supernova. But there are no 2 opposing views, right? I mean, if there are 2 opposing views, it's not the point of the passage, you know? Because the question is asking you about the primary purpose of the passage. So maybe, let's say that I have a passage about football, right? And then in the 3rd paragraph, I briefly mention the tension between Scottish and English football teams, but my overall passage was more about the history of football. You cannot choose the answer that it's about Scottish and English teams because that's not the primary purpose, right? So the word primary means that you want to choose a summary. Therefore, yeah, I think B, describe a shift in thought as a result of a natural event. Maybe we can ask Anwari Mutakin as to why he chose B. Anwari Mutakin?
Hi. Okay, can you hear me clearly?
Not well. I cannot hear you well. Hello?
I'm sorry. I think it's
Yeah, I'm so sorry. You're soft.
Oh, okay. You got this one?
It's better now, yeah. Why do you choose B?
I think it's because I mean the description in the last sentence of the passage describe what happened about the supernova and also the idea of conventional to a worldview. So I think that's the give us a description about why the natural happening can change, could change the view of the So I think the idea is the last one, the last sentence of the passage. We
The idea was.
and also the lecture is not only sought to explain the origin of the star.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Does it say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I thought. Because like the Galileo class, I mean lecture, um they seriously undermine the views of many philosophers that the
Yeah.
heavens are invisible because
Right.
they saw what happened at what they call a supernova.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's all I think.
Okay, got it. Because of the word undermine, right? Because Galileo undermined previous worldviews, and his view was influenced by a natural event like the supernova explosions or something like that. Therefore, that event, sorry, therefore, a shift in thought resulted as a result of a natural event. Right? Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Anwari. Okay. And don't forget to read the instructions. Here again is consider each of the following. Sorry. Consider each of the following. Which of the following can be inferred by the passage? Indicate all that apply. First, supernova can take over a year to fade from view. Is that true? Yes, it's true, right? Why do we know it's true? Because of the seventh line. In 1604, a supernova became visible, appearing as a star so bright that it was visible in daylight for more than a year, correct? So supernova can take over a year to fade from view, is correct? Correct, correct. Prior to 1604, no one had ever seen a supernova. Is that true? Tell me, is that true? The second one. You can tell me true or false. Is that true? Not true. Camelia Salama. Not true. Okay, excellent. So the first one is true. The second one is not true. The third, Galileo convinced philosophers of the incorrectness of their views. True. Sorry, Galileo, let's look at the sentence again. Galileo, who lectured at the university, gave several lectures widely attended by the public. The lectures, okay, remember his lectures are not attended by the philosophers, they are widely attended by the public, okay? The lectures not only sought to explain the origin of the star, but seriously undermine the views of many philosophers that the heavens were unchangeable. This idea was foundational to a worldview underpinned by a central and all-important earth with blah, blah, blah. By the way, I don't know what this idea refers to. I'm not quite sure. This is an undefined pronoun reference in a way. So now we have a debate, Santika, between people who think that the third one is true and people who don't think the third one is true. Shall we take a vote? Everyone? Is Galileo convinced philosophers of the incorrectness of their views true or not true? There is no evidence, Anwari says. Excellent, Anwari. The text doesn't say he convinced the philosophers, correct? It only says that it undermined their views, but not that it convinced them, correct? Excellent. So I would actually say that it's only one. Do we agree? No, we don't agree. There is a debate. Reza says cannot be inferred. Anwari says there is no evidence. Okay, I think I agree. For me, I think it's only one. Okay. Next one. Author mentions which of the following as a result of the supernova of 1604. Which of the following as a result of that supernova, okay? As a result of that supernova. A, the supernova created and dispersed the heavy elements out of which the earth and everything on it is made. Okay, I think that's true. But is it a result of that particular supernova of 1604? I'm not sure. B. Galileo explained the origin of the supernova. Is that why? What is the result of the supernova? Did he explain the origin of the supernova? Let's see. Galileo, gave lectures that sought to explain the origin of the star. Isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting, guys? Because did he sought to explain? What does it mean? He tried to explain, correct? Correct? Okay. So I don't know if he explained because it says sought to explain the origin of the supernova. Maybe, maybe not. C. The public was interested in hearing lectures about the phenomenon. Is that true? Any opinion about C? D. Galileo's lectures were opposed by philosophers. The philosophers' views are undermined in those lectures, but did they oppose those lectures? No such information in the text. E. Those who thought the supernova was vapor were proved wrong, maybe. What do you think, guys? A, B, C, D, or E? Which of the following is the result? C, C. Okay. Can we ask Arista? Is she ready? Arista, why C? Where is the evidence in the passage?
Yes. C itu the answer is C, I think, because it's C widely attended by public. So I think public is interest to Galileo lecture.
Nice. Okay, but why is it not D, for instance? Because some
opposed. I just don't. It didn't say that it's opposed Galileo, the philosopher. So
yeah, it doesn't say that, but I think Faina feels passionately about this. So can we unmute Faina again, Santika?
What were you saying?
Can we? Hi, Faina.
Oh, Faina?
Yeah, Faina.
Okay.
Diana, Faina.
Unmuted.
Okay, thank you, Kaiga Christian. I'm back again.
Yeah.
Actually, it's quite tricky. I don't know it's whether C or D, but it's quite interesting because there is a contradiction here. But seriously, blah blah blah. Use of many philosophers that the heavens were unchangeable. So the word of unchangeable here makes me quite confused. So that's why I think it would be D, but it will be C as well. I don't know.
But D says Galileo's lectures were opposed by philosophers, correct?
Yes, it's
were opposed by. If I'm gonna translate the Indonesian, something like dilawankan dengan, betul? Dilawan dari apa dengan. So, did the philosophers oppose Galileo? Which sentence in the text says that the philosophers opposed Galileo with the philosophers as the subject?
Okay, so there is no.
There is none.
Yeah. Okay. I changed my mind.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you.
Now there is what was the word? There's hegemony right now. There's the hegemony between us where C is the answer, correct?
Yeah.
Isn't that a hegemony?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Dominant.
Yeah, dominant. Yeah, dominant. Excellent. Okay. So we agree. I think we mostly agreed. So it's only interesting for me because question 10 is a very typical question in relaying to you the amount of close reading that you're supposed to do to answer it, okay? Because if you were not told this, you would probably have passed quickly over the sentence, Galileo, who lectured at a university, gave several lectures widely attended by the public. It's not important, right? Like if you were going to quickly read like a normal person, you would have passed it over and you would probably have chosen D, that his lectures were opposed by philosophers, because that's almost right. But again, change and adjust your expectation as to how closely you're supposed to read. I think we have 20 minutes, which is like a good amount of time to maybe do this passage because it's extremely a stereotype of academic writing, so I think we could have fun reading it. Lucas Benavides, will you help me read this extremely long passage? And everybody's going to be alert to every qualified statements, every adjective, every transition words, blah, blah, blah. Okay, Lucas? Now we have to hit a home run again and get every single question right. Hi, Lucas. Lucas
Hi,
Benavides.
Christine. Thank you.
Thank you. Please read so I can drink some.
In John Emilio's essay, Capitalism and Gay Identity, he argues that the emergence of industrial capitalism led to new opportunities for free laborers in the United States, leading to various beneficial changes in social conditions. It is clear that there are two overarching themes emergent from Emilio's argument about the effects of the onset of industrial capitalism, the new abundance of independence and choice for free laborers. He implies throughout that this independence and choice are the distinct new markers of the social conditions resulting from the economic shift. Emilio argues that capitalism empowers laborers as free in the sense that they are free to look for jobs and to negotiate contracts and terms of labor. Emilio critics suggest that he largely sidesteps the problems that confound free labor ideology and limit the ability of workers to openly negotiate contracts with employers and to accept or reject the conditions offered. The contract negotiations, cited as a sign of freedom by Emilio, are often hardly negotiations at all, but rather highly exploitative arrangements that workers have little ability to affect. From the first flowel girls all the way to the modern third world garment works described by Anne Lewis, blue jeans and bunkers, it is clear that for many, particularly women, minorities, and immigrants, free labor has hardly been free at all. Such critics also suggest the Emilio misrepresents the historical and continued significance of the home. The shift from a home base to industrial economy, though indeed very drastic, was hardly as absolute as the Emilio suggests. Indeed, from nannying to housekeeping to even the home-based jobs described in blue jeans and bunkers, labor is still a very active part of the home even today. In the essay, the approaching obsolescence of housework, a working class perspective, Davis spends a great deal of time discussing the continuation of labor in the home in stark contrast to the assertions of Emilio, where Emilio argues that industrial capitalism equated to freedom from the home. Davis argues that it actually equated to thickening the bars that caged housewives to the home as productive and reproductive labor, split further and more distinctly apart. Davis argues that women were the losers in a double sense, as the traditional jobs were usurped by the bargaining factories. The entire economy moved away from the home, leaving many women largely bereft of significant economic roles.
Thank you so much, Lucas. I appreciate it. Very long passage. Since you read it, can you stay unmuted and can I ask you to summarize? What is the purpose of the passage?
Yeah. I think I have to take several minutes. It's quite long for me.
Yeah, you have to think again because it's sometimes difficult to read out loud and concentrate on what the passage is saying. So I'm gonna open it up to the floor. Can anyone give me a quick summary of the passage? I think we can ask Ruliawan Ediwasito. Ruliawan Ediwasito, can you summarize the passage for me? Hi, Ruliawan.
Hi, Christine.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Hi again. What's the summary? Yeah.
I think it told about the free labors.
Nice. Okay. About free labors, what about them? Are they truly free or not?
I guess they are.
Well, the first guy says they are, John D'Amelio, right? But then his critics don't think they are, correct?
Yeah, correct. The Emilio were said about the independence and choices, but the rest is the opposite about that.
Excellent. That's a very decent summary. Thank you so much, Ruliawan. Do we agree with him? This is mainly a discussion about laborers during a certain time. What time is that? Laborers in the period of industrial capitalism. D'Amelio thinks that capitalism has given laborers free choice and independence, but D'Amelio's critics do not agree with this summation, correct? Very good. Dea Permatalia. It is also mainly about the transformation of socioeconomic conditions in the US. Very good. That's a great summary. Let me point out, however, that last week I spent some time talking about stereotyping academic writing. And as I said earlier today, sometimes it's difficult to locate the position of the author because the author is mainly summarizing other authors' view on something. But if Ruliawan is still on the line, can I ask Ruliawan if the author of this passage agrees or disagrees with John D'Amelio? Does the author of this passage start by quoting John D'Amelio in order to align himself with John D'Amelio, or does he fundamentally not agree with John D'Amelio's point of view? A or B?
I agree with the Emilio.
You think he agrees with D'Amelio?
Yeah, but let me read it more.
It's kind of difficult to tell in a way because he talks about D'Amelio right from line 1 to line
Most 10, 9.
Yeah, 9 or 8 or 7. And then he says, but he doesn't say but, he just says, D'Amelio's critics, meanwhile, he doesn't even say meanwhile, he just says, D'Amelio's critics suggest he largely sidesteps the problem. Such critics also suggest, and then in the essay, Davis, blah, blah, blah. I think if I look at the breakdown of the passage here, he summarizes D'Amelio for about 7 lines, and then between lines 7 to 27, it's all criticism against D'Amelio. I would say the author's position is closer to the critics than to D'Amelio. Do you agree? Okay, let's go to the questions because we have 12 minutes, so here it's a race to not get anything wrong. Are we ready? Yes, otherwise we would have wasted our time. Don't forget. The structure of the passage is best described as, this is RC question type 7, right? Which is very easy, I think. RC question type 7. Structure question. Which of the following best describes the structure of a passage? Like, how do they build their argument kind of thing, right? Like summarize the progression of the argument. So structure of the passage is best described as 12 minutes, guys, and 5 questions. So how many minutes per question? 2.4 minutes per question or something. So what is number 35? Structure of the passage is best described as a theory is described and supported. Okay, B, a theory and a screed against it are provided. C, a theory is presented, followed by a collection of opinions that impugn it. D, a theory is discussed and its author's credentials are questioned. E, a theory is presented and ridiculed. Remember last week we say if it's labai, it's never the answer. E is sola by, right? A theory is presented and ridiculed. So we know it's not E, correct? Everybody says B. A theory and a screed against it are provided. What does screed mean? Anybody? Dictionary definition of screed? Screed means against. What is the dictionary definition though? Screed dictionary definition. The dictionary definition is a long speech or piece of writing that is regarded as tedious, like her criticism appeared in the form of screed. So a theory and a screed against it are provided. I don't know. See, I like a theory is presented followed by a collection of opinions that impugn it, because impugn means to kind of like punish it, not agree with it, criticize it, correct? So do we all agree, C? Yes, I think mostly C won out. Excellent. So a theory is presented, and then there is a collection of opinion that goes against that theory, correct? So more or less C. Great. 36. The passage suggests that one argument presented against D'Amelio's theory is based on what? Semantics, sexism, ethnocentrism, communism? Definitely not communism. Ethnocentrism, not sure. Everybody's saying E, B. Oh, this one we are lost. Let's go to the passage itself. I would actually argue, oh my God, these are such diverse opinions, Santika. This is an exciting question. We have E, we have B, we have D. We have D. Okay. So first of all, the question is asking one argument presented against D'Amelio's theory. Then we backtrack. Where was there an argument against D'Amelio's theory, right? And then we see, remember when we were reading this passage, and then around line 7 or 8, it says D'Amelio's critics, correct? D'Amelio's critics suggest that he largely sidesteps the problems that confound free labor ideology and limit the ability of workers, blah, blah, blah. The contract negotiations cited as a sign of freedom by D'Amelio are hardly negotiations at all, but rather highly exploitative arrangements that workers have little ability to affect. So around this part, we see a criticism against D'Amelio's concept of the free laborer, correct? And then the critics are saying what he calls freedom is not actually freedom, blah, blah, blah. So it's actually an argument based on semantics, correct? Is it an argument against, is it an argument based on semantics? Anybody? Dictionary definition of semantics? Sometimes finding the dictionary definition of a word can be extremely interesting. So semantics dictionary definition would tell you that it's a branch of linguistics concerned with meaning, but actually it's like arguing over the meaning of a word. So one criticism presented against his theory is the argument over the word freedom, correct? So it's semantics. It's actually D. So we had diverse opinions here, but it's actually D, okay? Kind of tricky because we would think that, oh, he talks about sexism, he talks about identity politics, which somebody mentioned, Lucas, feminism, being a woman is political construction, so the answer can be B, political identity or sexism. But actually, don't trip up. Just try to refer back to the text. The passage suggests one argument against his theory. Find that one argument against his theory. Where is it located? What is that argument based on? It's based on arguing over the concept of freedom. Therefore, it's an argument over semantics. Okay? Yeah, as Anwari says, independence and free. To who? I bet Anwari studied like sociology or something back in university. Anwari, maybe feed my curiosity and tell us what you studied when you were during kuliah days. What was your jurusan, your major? Education. Interesting. Okay. 37. In the second paragraph, the author mentions the Lowell girls in order to. Okay, we have 5 minutes now. So Lowell girls, right? Where is it? Here. Locate the place. The contract negotiations cited as a sign of freedom by D'Amelio are hardly negotiations at all, but rather highly exploitative arrangements that workers have little ability to affect. If I'm going to summarize the sentence, I'm going to say D'Amelio says capitalism makes workers super free with a lot of freedom and independence. His critics say that's not true. And then that sentence, from the first Lowell girls all the way to the modern third world garment workers, described by Ann Low's blue jeans and bankers, it is clear that for many, particularly women, minorities, and immigrants, free labor has hardly been free at all. So the Lowell girls is an example of the group of people who did not get to enjoy labor that was truly free, correct? So they were mentioned in order to what? A, illustrate how industrial capitalism eroded women's economic position. B, challenge an assertion about the importance of home-based economies. That was mentioned later. It's not in the Lowell girls discussion, so B is wrong. C, rebut the arguments of D'Amelio's critics. No, this is part of D'Amelio's critics, so it's not C, not B. D, favorably contrast their position to that of third world garment workers. And not really, they were talked about in one row. E, support an assertion that workers' autonomy is more myth than reality. This is actually a kind of tricky question because is it A or is it E? The Lowell girls were mentioned in order to illustrate how industrial capitalism eroded women's economic position, or were they mentioned to support an assertion that workers' autonomy is more myth than reality? Everybody says E, so I'm just gonna ask Gifari Aulia, whom we have not heard of today, to explain why is it E, Gifari Aulia, and not A?
Okay. Yeah. I choose A, B, E. Sorry, because of the lower girls contrast the opinion of the Emilio in line 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I see. Yeah, because the Lowell girls contrasted is rebutting the opinion of D'Amelio, correct? So workers' autonomy is more myth than reality. I agree that it's E. It's not A because they weren't only talking about women's position, they were also talking about immigrant position, correct? From the third world workers' position, because it's from the first Lowell girls all the way to the modern third world garment works. So it's not just about women. Therefore, A would be wrong for that reason. Am I making sense? Now we have 2 minutes. Let's see if we can do a minute each. 38. The passage suggests that Davis would be most likely to agree with which of the following? A. Industrial capitalism leads to independence and choice. Remember, we're talking about Davis here, whom is the person who does not agree with D'Amelio, okay? Davis does not agree with D'Amelio. A. Industrial capitalism leads to independence and choice. B. Minorities have little freedom of choice. C. People without economic roles are disadvantaged. D. Home-based jobs still account for a significant percentage of the overall economy. E. Domestic work should be paid. 38. So let's locate Davis. Can we ask Vincentia Maudi Halim to read for unmuted Vincentia Maudi Halim? Just read the part about Davis. Like, can we read the last paragraph, Vincentia?
Okay, so in the essay, the approaching of obsolescence of housework, a working class perspective, Davis spends a great deal of time discussing the continuation of labor in the home in stark contrast to the assertions of D'Amelio, where D'Amelio argues that industrial capitalism equated to freedom from the home. Davis argues that it actually equated to thickening the bars that cage housewives to the home as productive and reproductive labor split further and more distinctly apart. Davis argues that women were the losers in a double sense, as their traditional jobs were usurped by the burgeoning factories. The entire economy moved away from the home, leaving many women largely bereft of significant economic roles.
Thank you, Vincentia. And therefore, if we reread the passage again, she's really concerned that women are economically bereft, correct?
Right.
Economically bereft of significant economic roles, because it's like they're still stuck working at home. They're not getting paid for working at home, but even so, jobs that they usually did were automated by the factories. Like, let's say sewing. Women used to have a business sewing at home, jahit gitu kan. And then because if you have factories, then they no longer have that job, but they are still trapped at home. A lot of the times they're working at home instead of finding jobs outside the home, so they're losers in the double sense. Therefore, the passage suggests that Davis would be most likely to agree with.
I think it will be C, because you mentioned that like women, they do not have jobs, but they need to do some other works. Therefore, they are at a disadvantage.
I feel like it should be E, because the discussion wasn't about people; it was around domestic work. Correct?
Oh, okay.
So this is another trick. Last point, okay, Santika, and then we'll end. This is another trick. Let's say that a passage is discussing taxes for property ownership. Okay, so the whole passage or the whole paragraph is discussing pajak untuk if you have a house or something like that, property ownership, and then you have an answer choice that talks about how taxes should be paid in general by everyone, but it doesn't talk about home ownership. It's probably the wrong answer, because here we're not talking about people without economic roles. Davis's concern was mainly about domestic work. So if we read all these answer choices, we actually see that E is closest to Davis. The language is closest to Davis. Do you know what I mean? Because Davis is talking about housework, correct? Labor in the home, housework, freedom from the home, cage housewives, entire economy moved away from the home. So home, housework, home, domestic work should be paid, correct? Do you know what I mean? That's the one that's closest to her language in that paragraph. But we're out of time, so we're going to save 39 for next week. But I think it's pretty simple. You probably know, so I'm just going to ask Santika if I can just have one Adinda guess what is the following, which of the following would be the best title for the passage? Adinda Saraswati Rasadi.
Hi, Adinda.
Hi, Adinda. Which one is the best title?
Actually, I'm not sure if it would be either B or E, because I feel like because the largely the passage kind of rebutted D'Amelio's views. I thought that industrial capitalism and the freedom for all part is a bit like sarcastic, because there is no freedom for all.
So it's C, right? Because we reject D'Amelio, correct?
Yeah.
C, right? C. Okay. It wouldn't be B or E because Adinda, because as you said yourself, the whole passage rebuts D'Amelio. Therefore, C, a rejection of D'Amelio's account of free labor. Great, awesome. Santika, I think we're done for today. Come back next week, our last session. We are going to talk about analytical writing, one of my favorite topics. So, okay, thanks a lot, guys. Amazing participation. Really appreciate your help.
Thank you, everyone. See you next week. And if you're in Zoom, I will share some link if you're interested to maybe find Education USA for any advising session, or as simple as registering for the third session if you haven't. So thank you so much, Christine, and everybody who have been participating in Zoom and watching us in our other platform like YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and everything else. All right, I'm giving back to Ad America team. Thank you, everyone. See you next week.
All right, thank you so much, Kasantika from Education USA, and also for Christine for a great session this afternoon. We'll see you again next week. So earlier in the event, I asked you guys a question, and the question was, GRE subject tests are content-based exams that assess a person's mastery of a particular field of study. What are the 6 fields where a subject test is available? So the answer to that is biology, chemistry, literature and English, mathematics, physics, and psychology. So shout out to our winner from YouTube, Nicodemus Sudira. For those of you who would like to tune in our social media quiz, you can tune in from the beginning of the event because that's when we'll be sharing our question. Now, earlier in the event, I also mentioned, for those of you who would like to create an event at Adamerica, you guys can go to our website at www.adamerica.org.ile, select Create a Program, and go to Collaborate with us. All proposals coming to us will be reviewed, and your event might be featured here soon. And while you guys are on our website, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter so you guys get updates sent straight to your inbox. We won't spam you, we promise, just once a week. And also don't forget to follow us on our social media for fun content, event updates, and many more. I hope you guys have a great weekend and see you at the next Ad America TV event. Bye-bye, everybody.